that was a very, very moving thing for him to do. And he did that with a lot of people, reaching out and touch. Touch is really important. Using it in the right way and helping people. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Those are really good. Thank you, Joanna.
I was thinking along the same lines, and I think I'm thinking of Jesus making himself available to people for whom no one was available, like the guy at the pool,
Mm-hmm.
where only one person could jump in, and there was no one who could help him. And Jesus reached out to him. The same as with the leper and other such people. Even the Samaritan woman shouldn't, but he did anyway, because he saw their need to make himself available for them.
I think the other thing I think too of the woman, remember, caught in adultery, and Jesus said, whoever is without sin can cast the first stone. And then he said, to the lady, go and sin no more. And I think of the compassion that he has and his ability to forgive and to bring healing in the life of the woman through that. I can't imagine what she felt like at that moment when she thought she was going to be stoned, and all of a sudden Jesus saying, basically, I forgive you. Don't do this again. Go and don't sin again. It's hard to do that at times, to forgive people and to encourage them like that. It was great encouragement for her. Mm-hmm. Anything else you can think of about Jesus being a good counselor?
For me, I think in the account of John, where we see a lot of interactions with people on the part of Jesus, we see that he gives space for people to think about the questions that he gives. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good thing to take in as a counselor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he chose words very carefully, and he didn't speak a lot, but what he did say was very caring, well, and sometimes when he talked to the Pharisees and some of them, he had very strong words, but the way he used his words was really good. Let me get this message from my brother. I have my uncle in the hospital, and he's been with my uncle, and I'm going to check. Hold just a minute. Hey, Paul, are you okay? Paul, are you okay? Is Uncle D okay? Paul? Hey, Dawn, can you call Paul? He keeps trying to call me, and I don't know what's happening at the hospital. I need to. Sorry, you all. We're sort of in the middle of a crisis with my uncle, and he's 96, and he's in the hospital for a week, and we're dealing with a crisis, and my brother's with him at the hospital, so I felt like I needed to answer that. I called my husband upstairs and I said, please call me to find out what's going on. Sorry about that. Yeah, the words that Jesus used were so important. And I think about us as counselors and how we come across to people, what kinds of words do we use? How do we share or talk or especially listen in a really caring, healing way as a Christian? And I think about that as I work with people that are dealing with death or grief or crisis. There's a verse that I've always thought about when I think about what I should be as a Christian and as also as a counselor and my coming across. It's in Colossians 3, verse 12 through the first part of 16. It says, since God chose you to be the holy people he loves, or I could put in there the holy counselor that he loves, you must clothe yourself with tender-hearted mercy, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Make allowances for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Above all, clothe yourself with love, which binds us all together in perfect harmony. And let the peace that comes from Christ rule in your hearts. For as members of one body, you are called to live in peace and always be thankful. Let the message about Christ in all its richness fill your lives. Teach and counsel each other with all the wisdom he gives. When you hear that verse, what do you think about? Is there anything that comes to mind as you hear those verses? I think about, he talked about clothe yourself with tender-hearted mercy. I think of that as a counselor. Kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. And then also learning to forgive. And then at the very end it says, let the message about Christ in all its richness fill your lives. And then it says, teach and counsel each other with all the wisdom he gives. So I think about, as a counselor, it's important to remember God is going to give us the wisdom and the patience and those things that we need to help as we work with people. Now, I don't know if there's one of those characteristics or some other characteristics we saw of Jesus and his ministry that are harder for you as you counsel or work with people. Is there something, sometimes having patience, sometimes you think, I wish they could get over this and deal with this quicker. Patience sometimes is hard. Being compassionate, is that hard? Sometimes it's easier to do that with people that are not in our family and harder to do that with people in our own family. Right now we're doing some construction work on our house, and I find myself not being very patient. It's like, this is going on and on. When's it ever going to get done? So I find myself not very patient, but if I'm working with somebody in counseling, I tend to be more patient. Are some of you all finding the same thing in your own life about some qualities that Jesus had that are easier to have with others, but not with ourselves? Yeah. So yeah, I hear you all with that. All right. Any comments, any thoughts as we go on to something else? Okay. Go ahead. Yes. Mhm. 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 Right. Right. Randy, believe it or not, I'm somebody that would rather get to the solution and just let's do it. Um, and I'm always thinking way ahead. It's like, how can we fix this? How can we? So it's not always a man or a woman. Now it tends to be that way. Um, and there are some men that are more empathetic, that uh, don't feel like they have to get it fixed. But that's probably a general thing. Men are wanting to fix it for their wives or for a woman, and the woman is saying, no, 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 I don't need you to fix it. I just want you to sit and listen. And so that is sometimes too, when I'm with somebody, um, when I'm, this is not really crisis counseling so much, but I guess it's part of grief and loss is when I help somebody, and I might be able to work with you all later, teaching you all this, but when there's a problem, sometimes what I will do is I'll say, what are some options of what you thought, what are some options of what you're thinking about of how to solve this problem? And let them talk about the different options. And then I say, well, let's look at some of the pros and cons of those options. And if there's an option they haven't thought about, I might make a suggestion. I say, you've got several good suggestions. This is one that might be, another one to think about. And then let them look at the pros and cons of those options and then come up with choosing which one they think is the best option. And then getting back with them on how that option went. That's one of the ways that I use oftentimes working with somebody. Because if I jump in there and say, you need to do this or you need to do that, oftentimes I don't really know the total situation of something. And I'm not aware of all the ramifications of what they're dealing with. And most of the time people have some options of what they think they could possibly do before I even get there. But sometimes I have to just allow them to be able to talk about what they've already thought about. Sometimes if they can't think of anything, I may throw out something. I'll say, well, one possibility might be this, can you think of some other ones? And let them play with it. Part of that is if I don't come up and tell them what to do or say, this, you really ought to do this. If I do that, then what they do is they come back again to ask, what do I think about something? And they keep wanting me to give them the answer. Whereas what I'm trying to do is to get them to process through the things and to come up with some of their own answers of how they can get to a result or whatever they want to do. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so that would be a really important thing. I don't know. Sometimes I guess you could just ask, say, are are you just needing time just to process and talk about what you want to do, or are you needing some input, or um, but that's kind of hard with that, and learning how to talk with them in a way that you don't get caught in that. Well, he told me what to do. Yeah, I like that. That's good. That's good. But it is hard. It is hard to do that. Yeah. Okay. What I wanted to do with you all tonight is to go over some basic counseling listening skills. Have you all had that in your introduction to counseling class? Basic listening skills, counseling skills. Have you all had that before? Some of that. Um, I thought it would be important to just kind of review through that, or some of you may have not had that very much. These skills are really, really important to carry with you as you do grief counseling. Now, does somebody have the, can somebody get the PowerPoint that's on the course page and put that up and we go through that? I added two new PowerPoints tonight. One is sort of similar to the one you all had, but I blocked that out for this morning and added another one that is similar, but I changed some of it to make it better for the class tonight. Last week, I don't remember who it was last week that was able to pull that down and put it up. There's one that talks about listening skills. Brandy, were you the one that did that? Okay, so what do I do? All right, let me see. How do I get back to that? um, okay, I'm gonna have to go back to the class and let's see if I can pull it. Okay, PowerPoint. Um, all right, let's see if I can. All right, I'm going to try this. I don't know if I can do it or not. If not, we're in trouble. All right, I can't bring it up on exit the screen. Let's see, is that okay? Yeah. All right. All right. Okay, that's a PowerPoint. Now, is there a way to scroll through it? How do I do that? Okay. Are you able to do that, Randy? But you're also on that other class, right? Are you sure? I'm so sorry. Is there a way? Okay. All right. um, all right. This is some comments about listening. You know, we thought about Jesus and the way he listened to people, how he was very caring, compassionate, a great listener. And then we talked some about how hard it is to listen at times because we want to come up with the answers. But this is a comment. I've become increasingly aware of the inadequacies of most communication in our society. It's rare for persons to share what really matters, the tender, shy, reluctant feelings, the sensitive, fragile, intense disclosures. What do y'all feel about that saying? Is that true? Or do you find that it's hard for people to really share those deeper feelings? Because when you're dealing with grief, you're dealing with in loss, you're dealing with some pretty tender feelings. And these people are reluctant to share them. Why are people reluctant to share about grief or the sadness or loss? Or are they? Do people talk about it much? From your experiences in ministry, what do you all think?
Maybe, ma'am, because they do not want to remember what happened, ma'am. Yeah, maybe that is one, ma'am.
Too painful.
Yeah, it is too painful to share. Yes. So for me, that is one, ma'am. Other are reluctant not to share because they cannot bear the pain. They do not want to remember what happened in the past. So that is for me, ma'am.
Are there other reasons that people don't share?
Me, ma'am, I think some were not just really used to sharing the grief that they have or the loss that they have. So,
Any other thoughts on that?
Ma'am, from my personal experience, myself and with other people, sometimes when the feelings are too tender, it's hard to express, especially when you don't understand it fully and you don't have the vocabulary for it.
Right.
Like that's it, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Okay. Any other thoughts? Is it hard to share sometimes because there's not a safe place or a safe person to share it with? Or maybe feeling embarrassed, or I think some of us in ministry oftentimes are kind of embarrassed to share some of those tender feelings because we're supposed to be strong and, you know, feel like we have it all together. And I don't know, just a thought. Mark, were you?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Sorry. Yes, I kind of resonate with what you said, ma'am. Like, and sometimes like people would be saying, "Oh, why do you still feel that way? Like you're a church worker,
Uh-huh.
or you should have more perspective than that." So that's
Yeah.
why sometimes it's limiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 That's true. That's true. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Here's another comment. It's equally rare for persons to listen intently enough to really understand what another is saying. Sometimes people fix their gaze on a friend who is talking and allow their minds to wander off to another matter. So is it hard for you to find somebody that really understands or was really listening? Have you ever had conversations with somebody and you're thinking, they're not really listening, they're just, or they're not really, you know what I mean? Are there people in your life that you go to because you know they really, really are listening? Or do you have anybody like that in your world?
Yes, I have, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
My wife.
Oh, wow. That's really
No,
great.
ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, I have some coworkers
Mm-hmm.
sharing the burden, asking me, kumusta, like that.
Mm-hmm.
But after sharing the burden to them, they keep on looking to different places. They are not actually listening. Yeah. So I have that experience, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I struggle with, sometimes I have people that want to talk, and I find myself watching and being careful, especially people that are my family that call and want to talk because I'm busy and I need to get some things done, or I have, appointment or something coming up, and I find myself doing things while I'm listening, so I'm not really listening well. And so I find I do that more with people that are family, and how I have to catch myself with that, because that becomes so easy to do that, and how difficult it is, how hard it must be for them. I'm not giving them my full self, and so occasionally that will happen, and I'll have to catch myself doing that. So it's a reminder to myself as well. Mm-hmm. You're right. Oh, right. I find that oftentimes with my husband, because I'm type A personality, one that wants to get things done and do and get things completed, and and so sometimes with my husband, he starts through a sentence and then I think he's stopping, but I jump in so fast and he said, no, wait, I'm not done, and so it's like, it reminds me, slow down, you aren't really listening. So that is very important for me to always be aware of. So thank you for sharing that, Randy. Okay. Any other comments? Let's go on to the next one. Okay. So what does God say about listening? These are just some verses that I had here, that you all can read. I won't read them for you, but you can read them. About listening, talking, hearing. Okay, go ahead to the next one. Yeah, there's the one here. He who answers before listening, that is his folly and his shame. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Okay. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Those are the big words here for counselors. Okay, the next one. What do you think about this? One measure of my love for others is how well I listen, and listening is foundational to ministry. Listening is hard work. What do you think about that? Do you all find listening hard work? I think it's a very foundation to ministry.
Yes, for me, ma'am, because every after service, a member will talk to me, and many times I am not actually listening. I just what's that? Response, not actually listening,
Right.
just responding. Oh yes, yes, like that.
Right.
So I think this is one thing that I need to take seriously. Yeah, because I see the impact. Yeah, maybe they understand because many people still coming,
Right.
and yeah, and also maybe that is one excuse for me, but I do not know to those people who are coming and talking to me what is their feeling like that.
I have, there's a pastor that I know that did his doctoral work in counseling, but he also was pastoring a church. He now retired, but he then went on to teach in a seminary in counseling. And I went to his church and visited it. And one of the things I noticed is after the worship, there was a long line of people waiting to shake his hand on the way out the door. And it took a long time for that line to finish because he would take a few moments and really listen to everyone that went through. I mean, he couldn't spend a lot of time, but we're going to learn some ways to help somebody to begin to talk about things. But he would come across as a very caring, and he was very interested, and it was just amazing. I mean, I've never seen anything like it before, and I was pretty impressed that this pastor took that time. And then people would just wait in line. I mean, they would, because they wanted to be heard going out the door. Pretty interesting. It was something I'd never seen before. But I think sometimes too, if we don't have time with somebody right there in the worship service, it's sometimes you can say, if you have something, why don't you stay after and I can talk with you for a few more minutes, or can I call you this week and we talk some, or is there a time we could get together and be able to talk through some things, because it sounds like some things are really, really important to you, or you're really struggling with, or okay, next slide. So here's a question. How are you at listening? Sometimes I listen really, really well, especially I'm kind of get in the counselor mode, and then sometimes I don't listen quite as well. So, okay, go ahead. Next slide. Yes, go ahead. Yeah. Good question. Good question. All right, let's keep going on, and I think we'll get to that point. Okay. Now this is this is sort of the part of the answer to your question. You all have seen bubbles coming up on the water, and underneath, when you see bubbles, you know there's fish underneath. There's something going on underneath, so there's fish swimming around. In some ways, Ken Williams talks about the unconscious or conscious bubbles are messages that people send to us that there's really an important issue or something that's going on inside they really want to talk about. So what are some things that you see that come up in people that make you realize that they really want to talk? Now, let's go on to the next one. Okay, with bubbles, I see these sort of as verbal and nonverbal cues that happen, that people have, that make us realize that they want to talk. These are things that usually you can tell they're kind of very emotional about it. There's a lot of emotion dealing on it. This is also an invitation to us in ministry to be able to listen, for us to begin to use the kinds of phrases or sentences or questions that will help them begin to talk about those deeper things inside. These people are people who really are needing somebody that will be caring for them and will listen. They're oftentimes cries for help. And so I think some of you will notice those kinds of things. Do you all notice those in people? If you see somebody that's very quiet and kind of retreating into themselves, you see somebody that looks sad, somebody that's sitting in a corner and not really talking with anybody where they usually get up and talk. Maybe a comment they make, life is not really worth living anymore. Wow, that's a huge bubble. And to try to understand, what does that mean? Are they suicidal, or what is it that's brought this on? So these are some things that it's important for us to really pay attention to when we see them in our congregation or with people that we minister to or work with, or fellow students, to see the bubbles that come up. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Now, these are some basic counseling skills that I'm going to work with you all with. The first one that you probably learned in Introduction to Counseling is just basic attending skills. And these are things like having good eye contact. You can go on to the next one. Having good eye contact. You can kind of tell if somebody's really paying attention to what you're saying with good eye contact. Now, it depends on the culture. Some cultures people don't like eye contact. Now, I don't know in the Philippines, I don't know in China. I was thinking in the Philippines, it just depended. There were some that had a difficult time having eye contact with me, and I would have to maybe look down a little bit more. It depended on the person. I don't know in your culture, what are you all finding? Eye contact. Are you finding most people feel like you're really listening if you have good eye contact with them?
For me, ma'am, in among the people that I've counseled in church,
Mm-hmm.
I think most wouldn't want you to look them in the eye.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Or some may be too embarrassed or be kind of ashamed of sharing maybe certain things on deeper levels. And so they may not want to have that eye contact. And so part of it is understanding your culture, the person, the situation, and what you need to do with that. In America, eye contact is probably more important, but you've got to go with your culture and understand that. The other one is your posture. I tend to kind of lean a little bit forward. Like tonight, I'm sitting here kind of leaning kind of into wanting to feel like I'm connecting. Also, I find if you have your arms opened and not folded in front of you like this, it lets people kind of know that you are open to hearing what they're saying. Sometimes you fold your arms in front of you, that kind of means like I'm closed to you when I'm not really open to who you are. It may feel safer to have your hands kind of out, or have your hands rested on the side of the chair or on your legs or whatever. Different gestures that might somebody maybe who's really sad, especially a woman, maybe touching the shoulder of another woman that's in tears. You kind of have to be careful with a guy and a woman together and how you touch and what that's appropriate, especially in different cultures. I don't know if there's certain gestures in your culture. I think you all may know some of those that might be more helpful than in nonverbal communication. Okay. Do I need to talk any more about that, or you kind of have the idea?
Just a clarification, Mom. How do we know when someone come for counseling and that someone is new to me? So yes, maybe I know the culture, but what is the sign, or how can we detect if that person do not want eye contact, or that person just wanted a little bit, you bow down your head like that?
That's a really good question. I think I would think in, let me plug in my computer here. I would think that if they came in and they tended to look more toward the floor and not look directly at me, that might kind of give me a cue that maybe I wouldn't look directly as much at them. I would maybe some, but it may be that they're embarrassed, and so maybe I would kind of lower my head a little bit, not making direct eye contact, because maybe they're embarrassed, or maybe they're so sad, and if they're kind of their head bowed and their hands are down, I might just kind of look down at their hands, kind of thing. I think a lot of that is kind of a feeling it out with the situation. Anybody else have any other input on that?
I think one way, ma'am, is to ask if if there's anything that's troubling them at the moment, or bothering them. So
Yep.
inquiring, ma'am.
Okay, let's go on to the next slide. That's great. Yeah. Oftentimes I will sit, like the chairs are like at 90-degree angle. you know, not necessarily staring directly at them, kind of a little bit to the side, or not totally right in front of them, but a little bit to the side, maybe not totally 90 degrees, but a little bit to the side. Does that make sense? So I'm not directly facing them. Yeah, and part of that is in your culture, is that appropriate for a guy to do that with a woman? Different cultures are very different, and so I always say, you know, what is appropriate? In America, things have gotten so crazy with touching that you kind of have to be careful and how much a guy touches a woman. I don't know. Oftentimes in America, after people say goodbye or whatever, they may hug, kind of do a side hug with somebody. But it just depends on your culture and what you think is comfortable, or even asking, sometimes people ask, you know, would you like a hug? Or do you mind if I put my arm around your shoulder? Or do you mind if I hold your hand for a minute? It's going to be okay. Right now, it doesn't seem like it, though. So part of that, as you talked about, asking them is also appropriate. Okay. All right, let's go into the active listening skills. Hey, are you guys needing a break for a minute to go to the bathroom or grab coffee or something? Are you guys okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's go ahead then and let's get into the active listening skills. These are really important to help you to be able to, when you see a bubble coming up in somebody, like they're sad or they're withdrawn or something like that, these are some things that are really important to use. If you know these 5 things, you will do really, really well in counseling and working with somebody. And this is really a skill to practice, and conversations with people in the dorm, on campus, with your spouse, with children, with people around you. Keep practicing these, because these will be really, really helpful to you. All right, next slide. Okay, first one is silent. All right, this is really important to learn how to do, to be silent. I think we're really uncomfortable with this, and especially when you're doing grief counseling, this is probably one of the most important things to do, is to learn how to be silent. And sometimes you just sit there quiet in silence and just let them cry. Sometimes you just sit there in silence and sit with them as they're processing through some of these feelings. Let's go on to the next one. Okay. All right. Next one is using open-ended questions. One of the things that we tend to do is we use a lot of closed questions. Do y'all know the difference between open and closed questions? Open-ended questions are questions that allow a person to answer with more than 1 or 2 words. A closed question is something that you can answer in 1 or 2 words. Are you feeling okay today? Yes or no? I'm okay. Versus saying, tell me how you're doing today. What's your day been like? Well, that allows you to ask the person to respond with lots of different options, and they can go into more conversation. Are you tired this morning? Yes or no? Or you can ask, what's this morning been like for you? Somebody that's in grief. I can't think right now. But anyways, go to the next one. Okay, look at these questions here. Which one are open and which one are closed? How about the first one? Is that an open question or a closed one? Can you answer it with 1 or 2 words? Then it's closed. If you can answer it with a lot more, then it's open. So what's number 1?
Close.
Okay.
Close.
Number 2?
Open.
Open.
Open. Yep. All right. Number 3?
Close.
Close.
Okay. 4?
Open.
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 Open. Okay. 5?
Close.
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 Okay. And 6? We have a double for lunch. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe a more open one would be, what would you like for lunch? But that could, I guess that could, yeah, could go and be, will we have adobo for lunch? No, we're going to have this for lunch. So I could ask some more questions, but probably closed. And the last one is?
Open.
Open. Okay, so you all have this idea of what's open and what's closed. So that's one of the things that's important to practice when you're working with somebody in grief, asking them open questions. Sometimes I ask and say, what are the tears about? And it's an open question, and they can talk about what the tears are about. And it's amazing what you can get from them. I remember I was working at one of the hospitals there in Baguio, and there was a lady that was there getting some kind of cancer treatment, and her family was up in the mountains and couldn't really get there. I think there was some family member that was there with her, but in my mind, I kept thinking, I was thinking, I asked her about praying, before I was with her, and I said, well, what would you like for me to pray about for you in the end? And I kept thinking, she's praying about, she's going to get better with cancer and she won't, I thought it was more praying about her. And she said, I am so worried about my family up in the mountains. And they're there and I can't be there to help them. And she was so concerned about that. And that's what she wanted me to pray for. And so I remember that using an open-ended question, what would you like for me to pray for you about? And watching her talk about that. And she went on and talked for a long time about that and how important that was to her. So open-ended questions will help you learn a lot about what's going on in people's lives. You can try it with your spouse or with your roommate or with your friends or classmates and see how that works. All right, let's go on to the next one.
Ma'am, question, ma'am.
Yes, go ahead.
So I'd like to ask, ma'am, because what if a counselee is very uncooperative, even if you're asking an open question? For example, like, could you tell me more about this? How are you feeling? And then they would say, I don't know. So, yeah.
And what do you think that means? I don't know sometimes.
So for me, ma'am, I think it's somewhat tells you that they're not really ready, or maybe they're genuinely not knowing what you're asking about. So,
Or they're having a hard time labeling the feeling, or yeah, not exactly sure what you're asking about, and you may have to kind of rephrase it or ask it in a different way. Oh yeah, could be. Yeah, sure. That's a really good insight. Okay. Yes. Mhm. Mhm. Yes. 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 Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. I think that's a really a good thing. And it also depends on the culture. It depends. We're also coming as people in ministry, and I think that's different than being professional counselors. And oftentimes that helps people open up more to be able to have um, that time to talk over food. I think that's a really good insight into your culture. Are you serious, really? Uh-huh. Yeah, are you serious? Well, one of the things too is that sometimes it's really noisy, and it's really hard sometimes to talk in a place that's, and sometimes it's hard to find a place where you can really go and talk where it's quiet. You know what I mean? Uh, so if you can find a time when it's not quite so crowded, Kenny Rogers would be a place where it probably wouldn't be quite as noisy. Uh, it depends which one. Sometimes McDo is kind of noisy, especially around mealtime. Sure. Mhm. Uh-huh. Right. Sometimes I would have people just like, especially women. I wouldn't do this with a man because I was single and worked overseas, and usually I still work predominantly with women, occasionally with a man, but I would invite them to my home, and I would just like have some fruit and coffee or something to drink, and we would just sit on the couch, kind of facing each other, kind of on the side, and um, we would talk together. Oftentimes, people would say to me, can I get together? I just need some time to talk. So that would give me the information ahead of time. They're wanting time, private time to talk. So they would come to my home. sometimes that's not easy to do in your culture and in some of the homes, in some of the situations. I don't know, are there other public places that are not so noisy? It's hard when it is hard sometimes when you go to a place that's pretty noisy. I know in Korea, one of the things we did is that oftentimes we would go to a coffee shop, but there's not really coffee shops in the Philippines per se. And that was really a really easy place to go and talk with people. They would eat at a restaurant, and then after you eat at the restaurant, then you go to the coffee shop and have coffee afterwards. It's kind of an interesting thing. Or else you just go to the coffee shop like in the afternoon or something. So part of this, you'll just have to find how you do it, or what is good for you and your situation. But it sounds like Kenny Rogers is good or McDonald's is good, but how about some of the rest of you? Do you find, the other thing is, if you're on campus, I would say, aren't there places on campus you can just go and sit on a bench outside? Of course, during the monsoon season, you can't do that, but it's hard to find private places or find, but I like how you talked about the restaurant. All right, let's go on. Those are things you have to kind of sort through and work through. All right, so we talked about being silent, and we talked about open-ended questions. This next one is self-disclosure. One of the things that's easy for us to do is we start talking about something, and then, or somebody talks about something and we say, oh, well, I had that experience, and we go off and tell our story. One of the things in listening and working with people in grief and counseling is that you don't interrupt the person with their story to jump in with your story. I know there was someone today that was had some kind of surgery for their teeth that they had to have out in the back of their wisdom teeth, and her face was kind of swollen, and I wanted to say, oh, you know, when I was, you know, out of high school going into college, I had surgery, and I thought, oh, no, you're not, stay with her story, and you don't need to bring up your story. But that story about my life came to my head, and I said, no, you're staying with her story. And so sometimes things will come in that will remind us of our story, and how important, though, it is not to interrupt them, but to stay with their story. Because what happens is you get into your story and you pull the conversation, and it all becomes about you and not about them. Occasionally, like if somebody has somebody's, you know, grandparent dies, I might say, well, you know, I had a grandparent die, but I wonder what it's like for you to have your grandparent die. Because you can't always assume, you know, my grandparent died and it was, you know, really sad. Some people may have a grandparent die and they're really happy because they had a really bad grandparent. So I can't always assume that they're happy. They may be, or I mean, if they're sad, they may be a little bit happy or angry or, you know, whatever emotion it was. So my situation is not the same as their situation. So I've got to be careful. Sometimes I'll do a sentence, you know, school is really hard, and, you know, classes are really tough and whatever. And I could say, oh, yeah, I was in seminary, and I remember, oh, man, so the tests are really bad, and these teachers were, you know. So I can easily get the story about me instead of staying with your story and saying, yeah, it's really hard. School is really tough, and there's not a lot of free time. You know, tell me more about, you know, your life at seminary and what that's been like for you. See how I get it back on their story. I may say just a little bit about, I went to seminary too, but, you know, what was it like for you in seminary? You know, I may say a little bit to disclose about myself. But, yeah, I went to seminary too, but I just want to push it back on their story. See what I mean? Go ahead. You know, I mean, it really depends. You know, somebody said, you know, I feel like a failure. I did so bad in my first semester of school. And I say, you know, my first semester, I was on the dean's list, and it was the bad dean's list because my grades were so bad. And it was really hard. So, you know, it sounds like you're really struggling and really having a hard time. Tell me more about what that's like for you. So I've just exposed the fact that I did very poorly my first semester of college, but so it lets them know that I understand that it's hard, and then I get it straight back on them. So it's sharing a little bit about yourself, a little bit is good, can be good, but you have to remember you're there for the other person. Now, if you're in a friendship with somebody and it's more of an equal sharing back and forth, that's a different thing. You know, sometimes you're with a friend and you're talking about, you know, what it was like in a freshman year of college and what, you know, that's different than if you're actively working like in a ministerial type of position, working in counseling somebody. Does that make sense? And you can add a little bit to help them, you know, a new mother, you know, you could say, you know, we've had 3 kids and it was really hard for my wife. Tell me a little bit about, you know, what you're going through. It sounds like you're going through a lot. See how you share just a little bit, but you put it right back in their court, basketball court. Okay. So, all right, let's go on to the next one. So we've got silence, we've got open-ended questions, and we've got do a little bit of self-disclosure if it's appropriate. Okay, next one. These are just some things we've talked about already. Yeah, all right, this is good. Observation statements. Observation statements are talking about what you observe. You look tired. You sound like, it's like what you see, what you hear, what you sense, what you notice, is things you observe. What I've noticed about you is that you have been very frustrated with school, or you sound like you are really excited about what happened during camp, or I've noticed that you've been late to class a lot and you're really struggling with something. Those are the kinds of statements. You look like, sounds like, and those will help you, because when you use an observation statement, the person realizes that you're really observing what's going on with them. They talk about how hard it is to be a new mother, and say it sounds like from what you're saying is that it's really, really hard to be a mom. So they're hearing, oh, they really heard this. They really understand, or they, you know, are really listening when you use an observation statement. So those are really powerful to use. Okay, let's go on to the next one. All right, this is the last one. This is clarification. This is trying to basically get clarification on what the person is saying. So what I heard you saying is that you're having a difficult time coping since your mother died, or Is that right? I mean, is that what I'm hearing? So you're wanting some clarification on this. So let me see if I understand this right, or what I heard you say is that financially it's been a real difficult time for you since your husband died, being able to financially take care of the family. Go on to the next page, and this has some things here with these are kinds of statements that clarify. What I heard you say is that right? Or so what you told me is that correct? Those help clarify. Sometimes you're not really sure. You want to clarify maybe an emotion, a feeling, something that happened to them. Is this right? And then they oftentimes will say, yeah, that's right. Or they'll say, no, that's not really exactly it. And then they'll explain to you a little bit more about what that is. All right. So we'll go on to the next one. Any other questions on that one?
Ma'am.
Okay.
I'm just, this question is not really for you, but maybe for my Filipino classmates, because when in English it sounds easy, so what I'm hearing you say is, but when I translate that to Filipino, it sounds awkward. So
Okay.
if anybody has suggestions, maybe just type it how to ask that in Filipino or local languages.
So
Thank you.
this may not fit your culture very well then.
I think they do, but maybe how to say them right now, I'm coming up blank. So yeah.
Okay. I think that's important. And also, Joanna, how does this fit with your culture?
Yes. I think it depends.
Okay.
Depends on the people, their character. Maybe in the first, in beginning, you observe like what kind of person: active, shy, silence, easy to shame. Yeah.
Okay.
Then you choose ask the question like.
Okay. I think in all of these, you have to think through your culture and what you feel good with about those. So you may have to, the clarification one may not be as helpful. It may be more of the observation ones that you use. Usually I don't use clarification very much. Occasionally, I don't use it much, but it's available to me if I need to use it. Usually I use observation and I use open-ended questions. Those are the two I use the most. Of course, I try to do very little self-disclosure and silence. Oftentimes when you're dealing with grief, silence is a really important part. Mm-hmm. Right.
Or you can rephrase the clarifying question
Yeah.
in a way that they could understand better. Like, I understand what Janice was asking, because that was my struggle as well. Reading these statements, like, is this what you're saying? So in our language, I would say, ito po ba yung gusto nyong sabihin? Like translating it in a way na it's not really word by word translating the statement, but yeah, maybe rephrasing the question so that they would understand better. Ito po ba yung gusto nyong sabihin? Or in Ilocano, kastoy po ba di kahit yung nga ibaga or kahit yung nga ipakaawat kanya? Parang ganun. Yeah.
Does that help? Or is that, I mean, for the rest of you all, is that more helpful?
Very,
Or is
very
that still
useful.
kind of,
Thank you, Ma'am Faith.
Yeah, it helps, but again, I agree with what John has said, that you
Hmm.
need to be very sensitive to
Right.
their culture, because there are some, like for example, for us Ibaloy, don't want to ask many questions. Yeah, like that.
Right.
There are people who doesn't want you to keep on asking. Yes. So yeah,
Right.
I agree with what Mom
Hmm.
Faye said. But again, we need also to see if that person really, what is that? Iko na tayo ti Ilocano nga,
Hmm.
baka kit di ungtan na ka, no ulitam.
Hmm.
Like that.
Hmm.
Sorry, I use my own
Oh no, fine with me.
Ilocano.
Yeah, and I really love that you guys are trying to figure this out for your own culture. And anytime you guys need to do that and in class talk that through, that is fabulous. That is wonderful. Because you have to find a way to make it fit for the people that you work with, and to make it helpful. And some of this, the clarification one may not work at all. It may be one that you don't, it's like, I don't think so. Probably in grief counseling, I would not use clarification. Usually I end up with open-ended questions and observation. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is that if you used a lot of closed questions, people feel like they're being, what do you call, interrogated, or they feel like they're being, I don't know. They don't feel, if you keep asking closed questions like, when did that happen? Or do you feel sad? Do you know, when is a funeral? When is it? I mean, they feel like they have all these closed questions going at them. They feel more like they're being judged, or they're being, I don't know, attacked or whatever. That's why open questions will probably be better. The closed questions, you'll feel like you're being interrogated, like the police, you know, I don't know. But that's why those would be very important. If you do an open-ended question, you don't have to do a lot of questions. You're going to be working with counseling somebody or talking with somebody who's been through I think it's a death or a loss, I think, in the next week. Not this week, but next week. And you may want to go ahead and start looking at the assignment. I think it's in Unit 4. This week you have a quiz on Module 1 and Module 2. That was the first two modules that we studied. And that you have a quiz, and that's due this coming Sunday. But the next week you're going to be, you'll have to look at the instructions in Module 4, and you're going to be meeting with somebody. Ask one of your friends or ask somebody in your church or whatever if you can talk to them about a loss that they had. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using these open-ended questions and the observation statements, and using some silence, and using some very little self-disclosure. You don't have to use clarification. Probably won't even use that at all. But you're going to be writing out a little bit about what you said and what that person said and what you said and what the person said. You don't have to write out the whole thing, but maybe take a section of the conversation that you had from what you remember. After you have this conversation, write it down. It's only like a page and a half. and it'll have instructions there. And then I want you, if you ask a question or something, I want you to put beside it, was that an open-ended question you used, or was it closed? If it was closed, then put, maybe I should have did open instead of closed, or you'll have to write some information down about what you were asking. If you use silence, you can put down, I was silent, and allow them to talk. And, but anyways, you can look at that assignment, but that's not due until not this coming Sunday, but the next one. If you want to start on that, you can, but you will be using some of these counseling skills as you listen to somebody. And then I can give you feedback. I'll give you really good feedback on how that went. And that will help you, I think. So, okay. All right. All right. So go ahead. What's clarifying sometimes is kind of, it's sort of like observation in some ways, but you're just wanting to make sure that you're understanding what the person is saying. You could say, so what I'm hearing in this, from our conversation, is that you're having a really hard time with your father's death, and you're having a real struggle with how to move on in your life now because he has died. See what I mean? But you could use observation. You could say, so what I'm hearing is that you're having a really hard time now that your father's died, and being able to make some further decisions. In a way, you could go with an observation. A lot of times I think of clarification as, when you're having a meeting with, in your church deacons, or if you're having a meeting or talking with your wife, or husband about something, you could say, okay, what I'm hearing you say is you want me to go to the grocery store and buy this, and you want me to do this, and you want me to do that. Is that right? Because you want to make sure you get it right so that you don't disappoint her or him and not get those things that she needs. So that's so clarification is something that we use, but it may not be probably what you're using so much in grief counseling as much as you would the open-ended and the observation. No. We're just clarifying whatever they said, because you may be a little confused, with what they're saying. So you just want to clarify and say, okay, so what you're saying is that is that you don't have the money to really pay for the funeral. Is that what I'm hearing? And they can say, oh, no, we have the money for that, but it's going to be a financial strain on us to do that. It's really just kind of clarifying some of the information that, or see what I mean? It's kind of hard because it almost sounds like observation in some ways. But observation is something you see or hear. Clarifying is when you've got something that you're confused about and you're wanting to make sure you got it right. No, are you grieving? That would be a closed question. Yeah. Clarification would be, I, I'm, I'm wanting to make sure, that I've got this right, is that, right now you're dealing with a lot of grief, but you're also dealing with a lot of issues with your children now that their dad has died. And so that way they can say, yeah, those are the issues I'm dealing with. Or they can say, no, I'm not really dealing with that. I'm dealing with, you know, they can say, no, I'm really dealing with financial issues.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, can we also think of clarification, not only as a way of clearing confusion, but also of assuring the person that you're listening to them and that you're really with them?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
fine.
It helps them know that, that you're really wanting to understand the situation. I know when I think of clarification, I think of, you know, teachers have assignments for them to do. And so lots of times students will come and say, now let me get this straight. Is this what you want us to do on this assignment? This. And then I'll say, oh yeah, that's exact. Or I say, no, that's not exactly. You need to do this. So it's helping to clarify, you know, like, let me be clear. The funeral then is on Tuesday at 6:30 at this place or whatever. And they come back and say, no, it's at this time, you know, whatever. It's really to make it clear you're confused about or don't really know for sure and you're wanting to get more clarity on it. That makes sense. But probably you're going to be using most your silence. You're going to be using very little or maybe no self-disclosure. You're going to be using observation and a lot of, not too much open-ended question, but definitely no, I would try not to use any closed questions, okay, when you guys do this. And it's going to be hard. This may be something you want to practice during the week, doing observation and doing open-ended questions. And it will really open up a lot of people talking with you if you use open-ended questions. So, all right. All right, I've got, what time is it? 9:30. Okay. You guys have something at what, 11? Do you have something at 11, right? Do we need to be done at 5 minutes to 11, 10 till? Correct. All right. I have the next few slides are just a practice thing with you for you to give some responses to. Let's just do one or two of those, and then we're going to skip over to another. Okay, do we need a bathroom break? Let's do 5 minutes bathroom break. Okay, you guys take a bathroom break. All right, everybody grab a bathroom break. Why don't we go, we can go on to the next PowerPoint. Levels of communication is another PowerPoint I have there. Let's do that one. And then we'll finish. It's not a real long one and it's pretty simple, but I think it'll be helpful. Anybody else need a bathroom break or a coffee break? Go ahead and take one. I'll be back in about 5 minutes. Are there any questions that you all have? I'll be happy to sit here, and if anybody has any questions while we're waiting. Is everybody okay? All right. Some of you, now remember, I'm counting on participation grades. So Gerald never came, right? What happened to Gerald tonight or this morning? I have participation grades. So most of you've talked a couple times, and that's great. That's 100% of your participation. If you haven't talked at all, make sure you do that so that we can add to your participation grade here. You guys are doing really good tonight, man. Good discussion, good questions. I'll be right back. All right. All right. Are we all ready?
Ma'am,
Yes.
yeah, I'll try to resend my assignment
Okay.
using another Gmail, my own Gmail. I do not know if you received it, ma'am.
Let me check it here.
Yeah.
Did you send it to my Yahoo?
Yes, ma'am, in your Yahoo email, ma'am.
Okay. Did you send it just now?
Yes, yes, po, ma'am. Yes.
It's flying over the Pacific Ocean. Not here yet.
Oh, what happened to my Gmail?
But it'll come. I'll watch for it.
I also sent it to your messenger, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
It should get here. All right. Well. Okay. Hey, is everybody ready to start? We've got a little bit here. We'll kind of do as quick as we can here. Let's go to the next. All right. We'll just do one of these and then we'll quit this PowerPoint and we'll go to the other PowerPoint. It's a shorter, quick PowerPoint. I think we can go through pretty fast. How would you all respond to this using open-ended questions or observation to, since my husband died, I don't want to go out alone? How would you respond to that? Since my husband died, I don't want to go out alone. What would be an open-ended question or an observation statement that you would respond to that? Pardon? You got to be very careful with why, because people sometimes feel like they're being accused, or I would not use why. When I do counseling, a lot of time rarely would I use why.
What about a what question then? Like, what
Pardon?
makes you feel? What about a what question?
A why question?
What? What?
A what? Okay,
Yeah.
ask me what you would say then.
What makes you feel uncomfortable to go out?
Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay, that's good. I think you're on the right track. What's another comment somebody might make? What about an observation statement? Simon, what about an observation statement? Can you think? Or an open-ended question? Yeah, be careful with whys. I would be really, really cautious using why.
Mom, is this question okay? Can you tell me what makes it difficult for you to go out alone?
Good. Is that an open-ended question or closed?
I think close.
Yeah, because she could say, can I tell you yes or no? I mean, she probably won't. She'll probably say more, but just be careful with, can you change the wording and make it so it would be more open? I think you could go with, can you tell me more about what makes it so difficult for you to go out? I think that would be appropriate, because I think she would then go ahead and tell you what's going on with that. So I think that's a really a good one. And I think about an observation statement, and I would say, it sounds like you may be afraid to go out at night by yourself. I'm trying to hit at a lower level of dealing with maybe some feelings about what this is like to go out. Or I'm wondering if it's pretty lonely to go out at night, or to go out by yourself. Or you can say, can you sometimes I can use a restatement, and I can restate it and say, so what you're saying is, since your husband died, it's just really hard to go out by yourself. And I'm kind of restating what she said. Sometimes restating something like that is also helpful. Let's go on to the next one, and let's see another one here. I was let go from my job last month, and it's really hard for me right now. What are some open-ended questions or observation statements you could use? Or maybe self-disclosure. Of course, we try not to use self-disclosure if we can help it. Observation, it sounds like it's really tough right now for you and your family since you were let go with your job, or it sounds like this was a huge loss for you to lose your job. Part of me is thinking, is there a way that I can get at a deeper emotional level with him talking about this job or her?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
for this one, can an open question be like, I'm just, what has it been like? What has it been
Say
like?
that again.
What has it been like since you lost your job? What has it been
Hey,
like
that's
for you?
wonderful question. That's an awesome question. What was it like losing your job? You know, and what you've been going through. Or it sounds like this last month has been really, really, really difficult in many ways, maybe not just financially, but also, you know, no longer having the role that you had in your job. Sounds like there's a lot of loss going on. Okay, so it sounds like is a observation. Okay. All right, let's go ahead to the other PowerPoint real quick. Can you bring up that other one that we have on levels of communication? I've got to learn how to do this so I can learn how to do this. I may have to talk to Doc Mock and have him teach me how to put up a PowerPoint. Okay. Okay. While we're waiting on that to come up, there are different levels of communication. And so we're talking about open-ended questions and observation, silence, not much self-disclosure. So now we're going to talk about the different levels. One of the levels is cliche, which is kind of like, hello, hi, how are you? It's kind of a very superficial level. A next level, oh wow, look at, you got that up fast. All right, go ahead to the next one. And next one. All right, these are the different levels. And one's on facts, one's opinions, feelings, and then really deep feelings. All right, let's go into the next one. All right, this is cliche. This is just sort of like, how are you? A greeting. hi, just kind of very superficial. You know, you pass somebody in the hallway at school and you say, hey, how's it going? But that doesn't really mean you really want to know. You're just saying hi. All right, next one. The next level is facts. This is just basic information that you're reporting about something. Tell me about your class. We have 12 students. They're mostly from Benguet. One is from Mindanao. Just basic information, facts. What about your church? Oh, I have a church. We have 30 members, and we have a children's class, and so basically facts. All right. Next level of conversation that you can have with somebody. This is a little bit deeper communication, and this is like giving your opinion about something. Like I put down here, the class is full of students, so no one can move. The students are really loud. It's giving more opinion about the class. I really enjoyed the class, and we had a good time with the content and whatever. It's kind of your opinion. All right, so the next level of conversation that you can have is the feeling level. The feeling level is more of a deeper level of communication, sharing what's really going on with your feelings. And these are some of the things I have. The classroom's so crowded and loud, I'm really feeling frustrated that school's not doing more to change this situation, because they're feeling frustrated, they're not happy, so they're dealing more on a feeling level. All right, next one. This is a the deepest level of communication. When you're talking with somebody, if you get on this level, it's a really deep level. And so I have this feeling here that, I mean, this thing I have here about the classroom so crowded and loud. I'm really frustrated that the school's not doing more to change the situation. If the students don't learn well, they won't pass the test, and then I'll feel like I'm a failure. At the same time, I feel helpless to change the situation. So see how it went from just basic information all the way down to, these are my real feelings about why I'm frustrated with the class. And this is on a deeper feeling level. Does that make sense? So these are the different levels. All right. So think about, go on to the next slide. Think about conversations that you have had with people in the last few days. What level did you get to in that conversation? Now, not all conversations need to be feeling level. Some conversations just is more information, opinion, but what about how your conversations go dealing with deeper levels? And this has to do, especially in dealing with grief counseling, because grief can be a very deep, a deep journey with someone, helping them deal with those feelings. So think about that. Where were you in conversation with people? And it may be very superficial. It may be very opinions or those type of things. Go on to the next one. One of the things that I think about too is we all grew up in a home situation, and we learned what kinds of feelings were acceptable to talk about and what feelings weren't. I know in my family, we grew up in a situation where we didn't talk a lot about when we're being angry with something. I know when Dad got angry, it's like we all kind of like left the house and let Dad be angry. And he didn't blow up or anything, but you kind of knew he was angry, and it was like, okay, I think it's time to leave. So we didn't really talk much about anger. We also didn't talk a lot about I love you and talk about love. That was something that I started doing when I was overseas working, and I would call home, and I remember starting to say at the end of the telephone call, I love you, miss you. And it was really interesting. My mom then started to say, I love you too. My dad would say that occasionally, but not as much as my mom would. And that was something that they never usually talked about. We knew they loved us. They did things for us all the time, and they cared for us and loved to do things with us and whatever. But as far as talking about those emotions, I don't know. Let's go to the next one here, the next picture. Okay. The next, there we go. I don't know if you can read these feelings, but think about what are the feelings that was hard for you to talk about in your family, or maybe it's hard for you to talk about, or you feel uncomfortable talking about. Sad, mad, scared, joyful, powerful, peaceful, content, energetic, submissive, selfish, hatred, bored, tired, ashamed. So, I mean, just think about in your own life, are there feelings that were hard for you? Any of you have some of those struggles with feelings that were hard for your family to talk about, or hard for you to express or to deal with? Did your family pretty much talk about all these? Everybody's quiet here. Anyways, everybody's getting tired, I can tell. Go on to the next slide, which is the last slide. One of the things I would do is practice using the different levels of communication as you talk with people, and you use your counseling skills, and also recognize the feelings that you're uncomfortable with. Because if you're uncomfortable with sadness, or somebody gets angry, dealing with anger at somebody who died or whatever, then it will be harder for you to help a person in grief to talk about those feelings if you're having a hard time with that. So this is basically what I wanted to share with you all tonight, and to realize we can stick on sort of the head level, dealing with facts and ideas and thoughts, you know, and yet part of that is learning how to deal on more of a heart level, dealing with feelings and deeper feelings and needs, and learning how to return the empathy, the understanding, and the affection and the care that's needed when you get on deeper levels. Sometimes if you're just sort of on the head level, talking about facts and ideas, thoughts, you end up giving maybe solutions or ideas or advice or comments back and that kind of thing. But let's think about the heart level as you're working with people, and what keeps you from being able to get on that level. Or maybe you are able to get on that level with people, or maybe it's certain people you can and certain people you can't. And using some of those open-ended questions that will help you go at some deeper levels as you get ready next week to start having a conversation with somebody about a loss they have, and start writing out a verbatim about, a verbatim is basically what I said, what they said, what I said, what they said. You won't remember everything that you say in that verbatim, and you know, you may have a 30-minute conversation, but you may only record maybe on the paper, maybe 10 minutes of the conversation. You don't have to have the whole conversation, and you don't have to tape record it, but just after you had the conversation, write down as much as you remember of what you said or they said. So any questions to this morning? Anything else that you want to ask or anything else we need to do? Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Is it okay to use it like you start on the first level and then go down to the deepest level
Yes.
during
Yes.
the conversation?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
And sometimes they will come to you and they are at a lot lower level, and sometimes that makes you feel uncomfortable, but you have to realize that's where they're at, so you need to be on the level with them. See, what happens sometimes, you're on this level, or they come to you on this lower level, and you're not as comfortable with that, so you start back up here on a higher level, on a more information and facts, whereas they're already on a feeling level. So you have to kind of get on their level and work with them. If they're already on a feeling level, then they have invited you into their world on a feeling level. So just be careful. If you're on a feeling level, you don't go back and say, well, how long was the funeral, or when is the funeral going to be? Or, I mean, you're talking about facts. They're down here sad and dealing with feelings. So make sure you stay on the level that they're on. And sometimes they'll be up here just sharing facts. And then as you use an open-ended question, you will help them go deeper. And not all conversations may be that deep, and they may not trust you to be able to share on a deeper level. And sometimes the trust has to build before they will be able to share with you on that deeper level.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
makes sense.
I also find it, ma'am, that whenever there's this recent conversation that I've had, where the person would always share about her feeling about something, but wouldn't go on to unpack it. She's not ready to really unpack the feeling, and so I would just try to listen to her and be silent. And sometimes I can be uncomfortable. The silence can be uncomfortable.
Okay.
So yeah, I still find it hard staying in the silent mode.
Right. And you may be able to use an open-ended question that will help her begin to unpack it. And it may be that she's not comfortable yet sharing it. Sometimes people feel too embarrassed yet to be able to have the confidence or feel it's safe enough to be able to share it. That's another part of it. The other thing I also think about is when I'm doing counseling and working with somebody, I kind of see myself swimming with them. I kind of see wherever they're going, I try to track and kind of be with them as they swim. You know, they're kind of going, and I try to stay with them in where they're at and journey with them rather than have my agenda, or if they're on a certain level, then I try to be with them on that level. And then, especially if they're on a more superficial level, if I know that that's something they need to be on a little deeper level to help them work through it, I could ask the questions, that might help them begin to do that. And they may not want to go there. And if not, then that's okay. That's where they're at, and I need to be with them where they're at. Because the other thing, sometimes if they come and share too much emotionally in the beginning, sometimes, especially if it's something they did that was wrong or bad or they feel ashamed about, they don't want to come back or want to be seen by you again because they're too ashamed and they've shared too much too fast, and they don't feel safe. So they may not want to come back at all. So you have to allow them to be able to feel safe with you in that relationship, to be able to go on and share. So they will share in their time, but you can also use the questions that will kind of help them. Sometimes you can say, it's really hard to talk about what that was like for you, or it's really, it's really hard. And I could see where that is hard. It would be hard for me. So that's sharing a little bit of self-disclosure. That would be hard for me. So I can imagine it'd be really hard for you. And that's okay when you feel safe enough to do that, or when you feel like you want to share that, I'm here for you to be with you on that journey. See what that's like. It's not pushing them. It's just saying, I recognize that it is hard. And then they may say, I really wanted to share, and then they may start to share. Or they may say, go ahead.
I'm just thinking.
Okay. Thank you all for being with me tonight, or this morning for you all. It's been a joy. Is there anything else that I can do to help you more, or is this helpful the way we're doing it now? Is this giving you all enough chances to talk and discuss? And okay. I would say this week you have a quiz only on module 1 and module 2. Delmas, check with Dr. Mock and have him get you into Moodle today. And then you can look on unit 1 and unit 2, and it would be mostly from your readings, the quizzes, and from the PowerPoints. Okay.
Yes.
Your textbook reading in the PowerPoints. And then any other questions you have, feel free to text me, email me. I need to check who was the one, Damas. You were the one that sent that class. I mean that. Let me see if I got your assignment. I didn't. All right, let me, I'll go ahead and put my email, my Yahoo email address on our course, on our messenger, to just double check it and make sure that you send it again. I don't know why it didn't come, but I'll put my email on there. Thank you all so much. If you have questions, I'm here. Feel free to check in with me. I'll be checking Messenger this week. I may not have my computer with me, but I will be checking in on Messenger every day and 2 or 3 times a day to see if there's anything else I need to help you guys with, okay? You guys are doing great. It's so good having you. I love being with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma'am.
Have a wonderful
Thank you,
week.
Ma'am. Bye-bye po.
You take care. Thank you for all my technical help. All right.
Thank you, and God bless.
God bless. You guys take care. Have a wonderful week.
Thank
You too, ma'am.
Okay. Let me know how I can help. I'm here for
Ma'am, look
you.
at your messenger, ma'am.
Pardon?
Look at your messenger. I'll message you.